right, well, despite the silly outfits with the tricorn hats, like my grandfather used to wear, this boxing stuff makes a lot of sense. These manuals are great. It's just like fencing with a small sword, almost. I wonder why it took them 20 years to write a new one. Hey YouTube, it's Chris Dyer here at Reborn Martial Arts in Springfield, Virginia, and we are starting our next time period, our next set of videos in our old school boxing, pugilism through time video series. Today we're going to be covering the art and practice of boxing from 1825. Stay tuned. All right, so let's talk about some of the historical background first, as we always do, and then we'll look at some of the actual material and what we're working with in this manual. So the first thing is 1825. What do we got going on? First, it's John Quincy Adams is elected the 6th President of the United States. The world's first public railway, steam locomotives, was opened in England, and Michel Cassot opens a salon in France dedicated to the art of savate, which we'll be talking about in a little while. So I guess one of the first things that people might notice looking back at our other videos, and you can take a look through the catalog, that we've been doing this chronological sequence of events. So we've kind of skipped some time, haven't we? We've moved from 1789, now we're in 1825. So it's almost a 30-year gap between the last manual we looked at and this manual. Now there is one other manual that predates this one by, I think, a year or two, which we'll come back to. It's a kind of a much longer thing, and it doesn't necessarily have new material for us to look at. It's kind of looking back on the past. But again, we're still, even with that manual, we're looking at a 20-plus year gap between manuals. So what in the world was going on? First, from May 5th, 1789 through November 9th, 1799 was the French Revolution. So a lot of people were tied up into the political sphere going on then. Immediately following that, from 1804 to 1814 and then into the 15th, were the Napoleonic Wars. So the people that we're talking about, the ones that are both funding the writing of these manuals, the people that these manuals are dedicated to, or even the writers themselves, are actually preoccupied at the moment. So we know that the people that have been writing these manuals so far are writing for a genteel class. They're writing towards nobility. They are nobles themselves, and that's why you'll see anonymous sources. They don't want to put their noble name to something that's considered a little bit low class, like we've been looking at. And so we end up now, 25 years later, after the last manual being written, we've come through these wars. We've come through, and war of this age definitely was less close than it used to be in like further past. We are using rifles, we're using cannon, we're using cavalry charges and things like that. We're not boxing. We're not doing dueling on the battlefield, right? So we are far removed. It's 25 years is a long time given the age. We're far removed from close quarters combat that we've seen in much, much earlier type of manuals. So the people that are looking at this manual now are kind of scratching their heads going, how did people do it back in the day? So now we're actually looking back on old manuals, trying to revive this sort of art. Now, yes, bare knuckle boxing would have still been an element in the streets and whatnot as a form of self-defense, or people that weren't at war, maybe working class folks and whatnot would have done it, but they are not the ones who are writing the manuals that we have to work from. So what we're looking at is something with a bigger gap. Now let's take a look inside and see what we got to work with, and see the introduction and some of the basic stuff that we're playing with. Okay, let's look at the intro next for this manual. Very first thing, they make a point of saying that any art taken to an extreme can be an unhealthy, bad thing for you. So boxing is no different. They explain that yes, it can lead to brutality and gross behavior and whatnot, but given with a dose of moderation, boxing can be good for developing physical abilities. It can be good for conditioning a person to be ready in a moment's notice for any necessity, and it's just good overall training for that. as long as the temper can be contained, then it's a good thing overall. Then they go into prep. Prep, they don't spend a whole lot of time going into details on any of this in any of the manual. It's very, very short material. But the prep work that they say is you must train with mufflers. And if you remember from one of our previous videos, mufflers were predating boxing gloves. They were just gloves that you put around your hand, filled with wool, and they're used to deaden the impact that you're making on your opponents or your partners for practice. Strikes should be done open-handed, so instead of making a full fist and clenching it as tight as possible, you have nice loose fists and you're giving loose strikes to your partners. And finally, that the mood is light when you're doing sparring. So we are going to be looking at sparring for this manual. Just in the beginning, you're just kind of going over some of the basic stuff with you. The next thing that they cover are guards, and he says that there's 3 different guards. And remember, we are looking back in history for his time period. So he's looking back at ones that we've already looked at, famous boxers of the age, Humphreys, Mendoza, and Johnson. So he covers their guards and says that your guard will set up different things. We know this. And then he goes into detail about the advantages and disadvantages of each of the guards. So we're going to cover that real quick. And then in our next video, we're going to go over the parries and all the actual material that this manual presents. So first is the Humphreys guard, which we are going to do, again, just as a quick review for all the stuff that we worked on. We're back weighted. This is what I call the long guard. Back weighted. Our left side is forward. Our hands are further out than in the other guards that we're going to look at. And our back is straight, our hand is guarding our chest, and the advantage of this one is this long blow, or the long jab, which I call it. In my long guard, I take this forward step, and we're creating this strong line of power driving forward into our opponent. So this he describes as the most powerful blow that you can give of all 3 guards. So from this position, this long guard generates very, very powerful strikes. Next is Mendoza, and I find it interesting. So far, the manuals that have mentioned Mendoza have kind of gone on to tout all of the wonderful advantages of his guard, his method, his style. This one just describes it, and I think it will be interesting to see, do they draw a lot on Mendoza? We'll find out. But Mendoza, they just simply describe it as forward weighted, so as opposed to back weighted from the Humphreys, we're forward weighted. Our hands are up here. Left hand is slightly more forward than the right hand, but they're close to the jaw line. Slightly tilted forward. This is jaw line. Hands are here, a little bit forward weighted. So it's kind of the opposite of the Humphreys guard. And then finally, Johnson's guard. And he says that this is the least elegant of all the guards, but it's also the most mobile. So in this guard, we're going to be more equal. So we're not going to do 1 foot forward, 1 foot, well, we'll have our left foot forward in this case, but we're not balanced either forward or backward like Mendoza or Humphreys. We're equally balanced. Your hands are actually going to be out more extended like this, kind of behind it. Your body is a very, very hard target to hit because I'm leaning forward into it. I'm presenting my chest. And in this position, I can move forward, I can move backward, I can move left, I can move right. My hands are out here. And he says that the hardest part about this one is you really need strong loins. You need strong legs, strong body in order to keep this position because it's exhausting. Because keeping your hands further out is obviously tiring on your arms. It's tiring on your body and your posture to keep this position, but it's extremely difficult to get around, and you're extremely mobile. So far from what we've seen in this intro, Humphreys and Johnson's guard, he's really digging them. He likes it. Mendoza, we don't have so much, which is unique. The other most important thing, he says that in all of the guards that we have, the most important thing is to find a balance between power and grace. Now what they mean by that is there's advantages and disadvantages to all of them. You want to be able to move quickly, and you want to deliver maximum power from that position, and that's the most important thing. And we're going to see how we utilize that in our next couple of videos. So stay tuned. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, comment below, and help us out, grow our channel. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.